Welcome to Taking Up Space, the podcast with conversations exploring what it means to inhabit our bodies fully without shame or apology and reconnect with our innate wisdom to find healing and body liberation. I'm your host, Cassie Krajewski, a licensed clinical social worker, certified sex therapist, and certified body trust practitioner. For over 10 years, I've worked with women and marginalized folks to reclaim their bodies, their inner knowing, and their lives in a world that often seeks to diminish their voices and experiences. In this podcast, we'll unpack the societal norms and expectations that interrupt our embodiment, like trauma, oppression, illness and pain, and the social constructs of gender, race, sexuality, beauty, health, and weight. My hope is that through this podcast, we'll learn to drop into our bodies and give ourselves permission to occupy space, physically, emotionally, relationally, and intellectually, with more confidence and authenticity. Join us as we challenge societal norms, explore what it means to find wholeness and reclaim our right to take up space as an act of resistance and body liberation. While this podcast might feel therapeutic, it is not psychotherapy and doesn't constitute a therapist-client relationship. This is a good time to mention, too, that this podcast will at times use adult language, so listener discretion is advised. If you are interested in diving in deeper, make sure you check out my online shop where I'm currently offering my Taking Up Space workbook for free. This workbook includes thought-provoking exercises, reflective journal prompts, and actionable strategies that can help guide you towards a deeper understanding of yourself and your needs and cultivate a more profound sense of embodiment and your own liberation. You can find this workbook and other resources at my website. That's inneratlastherapy.com/shop. Hey there, welcome back to Taking Up Space. I've got an eye-opening episode for you today. I'm diving deep with the incredible Bre Wolta. Bre is a relationship clarity coach based in Colorado who's all about helping women cut through the noise and get real and honest in their relationships. Bre's not just any coach. I've known Bre for several years and the work that she's done. And she's someone who's been in the trenches herself, and she leads with that and now guides women through the tangled web of manipulative, emotionally unavailable, and even narcissistic relationships. If you've ever found yourself wondering, why do I keep attracting this type of person that's not good for me or available for me? Or you're wondering, how do I break free from this cycle of relationship in which I continue to get missed and my needs aren't met? Trust me, you're in the right place with this episode. Bre and I get into the nitty-gritty of what narcissism really looks like in relationships. I know the word narcissism gets thrown around a lot these days. People are calling lots of people narcissists, maybe someone who's full of themselves, or maybe who's just someone who's an asshole. But Bre is going to help us break down what narcissism is really about, which is a deep-seated need for power and control. And often narcissistic people have a deep core wound of shame. And so everything that they're doing is organized around keeping that shame as far away from them as possible and striving for power and control. And it's in that subtle manipulation, the way that they either idealize themselves or chip away at your self-esteem until you're the one who feels dependent on them. And this is where people can feel like they're going crazy or they are the one who's at fault here, when really what's happening is this abusive cycle. Bre talks a lot about the power of embodiment and self-awareness in her healing. And Bre's been through this herself. So she's going to share a few of the techniques that she has found helpful to reconnect with her body and safely process her emotions that have come up while healing from a toxic relationship. And it's a game changer for anyone who's been stuck in that loop of detachment and disembodiment, especially if you have a history of past trauma, disordered eating, and those things have made it really hard to feel grounded. One of the most powerful insights from our conversation is our discussion around being alone and feeling lonely. And I think for many people, that fear of being alone is what keeps people stuck in these relationships, and they have themselves compromise or set their needs aside or really lose themselves in these relationships. Bre helps us understand and how you can find contentment even in solitude. And there's some really cool ideas that she's going to present to us in this conversation. She really helps us understand how we can turn our aloneness into a source of strength and an opportunity for intense inner growth and a way to truly take up space rather than shrinking away in fear. So if you're ready to build relationships that really allow you to show up fully who you are instead of shrinking down to fit someone else's mold, I hope you stay tuned. This episode is going to hit home. Here's my conversation with Bre now. Hi, Bre.
Hello.
It's so exciting to have you on the show. I really appreciate you being here.
I was so excited when you reached out. It has been far too long.
I know this is like a reunion to all of our listeners. Bre and I met each other years ago now in a different capacity, different roles that we each held. Yeah, you ready to dive in? So you're a relationship clarity coach. Even just that phrase just feels so anchoring to me. But can you give us a definition of what that is? What's a relationship clarity coach?
Yes, I work with women to help them find clarity about their relationships, their past relationships, their relationship patterns, and clarity about themselves and who they are within those relationships. I specialize in working with women who have gone through some sort of mindfuck of an experience with a man. Typically, that's some amount of narcissistic experience that they've been in. It could also just be other manipulative or emotionally immature, emotionally unavailable, confusing situations. They come out of it and they're just like, what was that?
What happened?
Why did I attract that? Why did I stay for so long? And some of them are in the cycle. So why do I keep attracting this type of person?
That is a real need that you're meeting there. Those are conversations I have all the time in my therapy practice. And there's just so much bewilderment, but also shame that people hold around like these relationship patterns and whether they're reflecting on that retroactively or what they're attracted to or anything like that. Tell me, what's the story of you getting to be a relationship clarity coach? That feels like it's really informed by some lived experience.
Oh, is it ever? Yeah. I was in a relationship. My last relationship turned out to be a very toxic relationship. And the way that I define toxic versus healthy is in relationships, we want to feel loved and accepted and secure the majority of the time, with moments of maybe anxiety, moments of confusion, moments of hopelessness. And in a toxic relationship, you're feeling that hopelessness, confusion, anxiety as the basis, with moments of feeling connected, moments of feeling desired or loved. The relationship that I was in at the time, I had no understanding of narcissism, no understanding of love bombing, of anything. And so I was in this situation where the beginning of the relationship felt too good to be true. It was everything I wanted. He became or presented himself as the person that I wanted. And it was just so intense, so extravagant, so much attention, so much desire, so much wanting. For me at that time in my life, I was like, whoa. I had historically always chased men who didn't really want to be in relationship. So to have someone coming at me with, you're my soulmate and I love you after talking for 2 weeks. I've just known I've always loved you and this is finally making sense and you're going to be my wife. Just all of these things that you're like, whoa, I feel pretty desired and special and awesome. I didn't know that was like not normal or love bombing, which is what I know it to be now. But it started out so euphoric and so wonderful. And then slowly over the years, it started really shifting. And I couldn't make sense of what was happening and just attributed everything to things being my fault because I was told that by him. And just being the personality that I am, I played the rescuer in my family role growing up. And that role is
familiar to you.
Yep. Yeah. So I just took all that blame towards myself and started doing therapy for the both of us, like started doing, trying to figure out my side and his side and how we can fix it. And things just kept blowing up in my face until it got really bad to the point where I couldn't not see the red flags anymore. And then came up against that whole fear of leaving, fear of being alone forever if I leave, not knowing what I was going to do, just living wise, all of the things that come with when you live with someone and then break up.
Yes.
And then after the breakup, it was the whole healing from the narcissistic abuse that really escalated after the breakup. And so restraining orders, needing to move houses, it was just so intensive. And in that, there was so much data showing me that he was a person that was not good for me. And I still had moments of missing him. And I still had moments of second guessing. Which is where the mind fuck comes in, right? This guy clearly is being abusive and I want him back. It took me a while to obviously integrate all of that. And I thankfully, I don't know what the driver was in me, but I dove into therapy head first and refused to let him have any more control over my mind. And that is what really helped me move through that in a speed that I did. So when I came to the other side, I was like, that's what I'm helping other women do.
You got immediate clarity.
Yeah. It was so clear. The whole vision of how I outline my programs and how I hold space made sense. It just really flowed when I was finally in the place to share my story and to acknowledge what had happened to me and how I wanted to help other women. I remember the very first video I did of talking about why I was stepping into this work. And it was so real. I watch it back now and I'm like, whoa, there was so much genuine emotion there. And people really resonated with, you've been through it. You understand. And that in and of itself lowers the shame around being in something like that.
It's a powerful story, Bre, to articulate these little shame points to invite people into their own self-reflection and also their healing process is so brave. And in the context of taking up space through that lens, how you're like supporting other people and what that looks like with themselves and in relationship and emotionally.
The taking up space piece is this experience, I think for me was the catalyst in so many things. Catalyst in closing the chapter of my codependency, of learning that I can take care of myself first and that other people don't take priority in my well-being. And I call it like a bitch slap from the universe because I hope nobody ever has to go through the level of pain that I went through in that experience. But it did really wake me the fuck up to my part in things, to my pattern in past things. And one of those patterns was being afraid to use my voice. Was being afraid to talk back, was being afraid to set those boundaries because of the second guessing and the playing small that I had practiced my whole life.
And as a thread of this podcast is how our body stories intersect with all these other aspects of taking up space. And I'm curious how that might inform some of this relationship story that you're sharing here too.
Yeah. So I struggled with an eating disorder for, my God, 15 years, really, until I got a grip on things. And it started from my younger years. I started modeling when I was 15. I'm very tall, I'm slender. I got put into that universe and didn't really know what I was stepping into, to be honest. And at that point, 20 years ago, it was still in fashion to be a stick. They weren't putting people who look like normal people on ads or on runways. So there was a ton of pressure from that industry to be a hanger, right? They just want you to be a hanger. No muscle, no fat, just be bone and walk down the runway and do your job was more or less what I internalized from that experience. And being around these 6 foot plus women who were size 4, my reality got very skewed in what was normal. So even being slender by just my gene type, my design, it was always like, I'm too big. My hips are too big. I have too much stomach fat. There was always something that wasn't as good as the other girls had.
Right.
And that came at a time in my life where I was really starting to figure out that I could have control over something in a childhood that felt very out of control. So it was this perfect storm of I can't control my family. I can't control what's happening there, but I can control not eating and I can control over exercising. And the bigger piece of that was really like that taking up space. Even taking up space in my family unit was hard.
Yes.
I had somebody in my family who struggled with addiction and took up a lot of space.
Yeah. So you had to shrink to make accommodation for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Physically and
in all the ways.
I didn't speaking. And now thinking now that I speak on a podcast and on YouTube and in these very public ways for a living is wild to me because I was so shy. I was so shy and just terrified of being heard.
Yeah.
And part of what the comfort in modeling was that I didn't have to talk. I was just walking down the runway.
Just an object to be consumed, right?
It's so gross to even hear that back, but that was the safe place.
There was a security in that for sure.
Yeah. It caused some lingering issues in the body issue and in just the confidence level of like when your confidence is dependent on being chosen for a casting. I took that very personally and that, oh, they don't want me because of me, not because they're looking for a blonde or something, right? There's a lot of reasons they choose the women they do.
Yeah.
But there was so much rejection in all of that for me too, that I didn't build the self-awareness or the confidence to be like, this is who I am. And maybe it's not right for this specific job, but that doesn't make me a lesser person.
Yeah. Yeah. How that dovetails so much with how this informs relationship. And as you were just talking about your most recent relationship of being love bombed and how that spoke to these maybe little younger parts of you, just felt so validated and seen and accepted maybe in ways that were really unfamiliar and felt really nice at the time.
Oh, it's like a warm, fuzzy blanket when you're in it. If you don't know what it is, if you have some awareness around what it is, and if you're a more securely functioning person, then love bombing will feel very intrusive. But to somebody who is thirsty, I was so thirsty, and he was just like pouring water all over me. It was just this love felt, or the lust, the desire felt very real, and I confused it with love very easily.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think the word narcissism can be thrown around a lot. You can take a moment to get some definition on what narcissism is in relationship or what that looks like. You're referring to a couple things that can maybe happen in relationship with a narcissist, but can you help us define it in your understanding of it?
Yeah, I'll tell you first what it's not.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Yes.
Not somebody who's self-absorbed.
Yeah, like just an asshole, right? That's not what a narcissist is.
Yeah, or somebody who's just into themselves, like a very egotistical person. Narcissists can come across as egotistical for sure, but we misuse that term often in saying, oh, she's so narcissistic, or he's such a narcissist because of something that they're doing where they want attention. And that's not all of it. That can be a component of their behavior, but really the driver of narcissism and a narcissistic relationship is the power over the other person. So they are seeking power, they're seeking control of you, and they gain that from your validation. So in different ways, they're using manipulation to put you in the perfect spot to make them look like the best thing you've ever had. or they're using manipulation to whittle away your self-confidence so that you need them and they become this powerful, godlike thing that is the only thing that can keep you happy or sane or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a relationship based in power, not like when you genuinely care about something like nurturance. It's not that. It's like a chess game that they're just moving you around to try to get what they want. And usually that's coming in the form of validation.
The word that comes to mind is exploitation. Like you are someone to be exploited to meet their needs or their desires or their objective, whatever that might be. Yeah.
It's so confusing because it always starts with that euphoria and you experiencing them as this wonderful man that you wanted to marry or you wanted to be with. So there's always part of your brain that's, he'll get back there.
Right.
And I just need to do more. I just need to change my behavior in order for him to get back to being that person, for us to get back to not fighting and going on these trips and all these love letters or whatever it was that you were getting in the beginning. But that's part of the hope that we hang on to. I've seen him do it. It's not that I'm making this up, that he's capable of it.
That's real.
Yeah. It happens slow. It goes from that into the more painful parts very slowly. It's like the frog being in a pot of water, not realizing that it's starting to boil until you're like, oh shit, I think I'm cooking. Yeah.
You mentioned that for like some people who might have more healthy attachment or security in relationship, that like that initial love bombing would be intrusive, right? That would actually be a real violation and would be a turnoff, but not for everybody. So what are the components that you've noticed in people who find themselves stuck in these relationships that maybe don't get that same signal in the early stages of relationships? What's happening there? What are the characteristics there, or what are some of the wounding that you've seen in folks there? Help us understand what makes someone vulnerable to that.
There's a few different things that come to mind. The first one is this fear of being alone and this real intolerance of being with ourselves and being happy whether we have a man or not. So we're looking for him, whoever him is, to validate that we're good enough, to validate that we're worth being chosen, to validate that we are girlfriend material, wife material, whatever. We in ourselves don't just inherently believe that. We're searching for the external thing,
right?
The him, to confirm so that we can feel okay about ourselves. And that puts us at a real vulnerable place because if that thing comes along, that's going to be the driver for me to connect with that person instead of being able to take a step back and being like, who is this person? What are they showing me? Are their actions meeting their words? All the other ways that we can discern people and their behavior. Love me. I'll take whatever I can get. And they can sense that. Narcissists love people who are malleable.
How conscious is that for folks who are narcissistic, looking for people who are malleable?
There's different schools of thought and there's different types of narcissists too.
Right.
The malignant narcissist, in my opinion, I'm not an expert and I don't know this for certain, but malignant narcissists love to inflict pain. And they love to see, especially during the discarding and the devaluing phase, they love to see you in a lot of pain, physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever. And that's a really scary version of narcissism. So I would imagine that they are more consciously, who can I play with and then fuck over, as opposed to a covert narcissist who is operating more subconsciously in that this is their coping mechanism. I have to keep you at distance. I have to stay in control of you because I can't get close to you. It's not safe. So I don't have the for sure answer to that, but that would be my hypothesis.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Just to allow some nuance there. But so we were just talking about what is it in some people that might make them more susceptible to partnering with a narcissistic person.
Yeah. It's an emptiness of some kind. And that can come from feeling like you're not worthy, feeling you're not lovable, feeling like you're not enough, which are all things that we really internalize from childhood most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have these parts of ourselves who are seeking the person that can heal us, that can save us from the pain. And if we haven't done the self-work to really untangle and uncover what those parts of us are, then we're operating subconsciously in relationships. There's such an importance in taking the time to find clarity. That's where the word keeps coming from. Of how are you operating? What's behind the scenes driving based on what you've been through? And if you can know that and know that you're more susceptible to wanting to feel needed by somebody, then you can start to give your own parts and your own self that healing so that you're not continuing to move from that place.
We talk a lot about diet culture on this show and all the ways in which people seek validation from the external world and sever off from themselves to find something from the outside to whatever is problematic on the inside. So I'm just drawing that connection, and also how so many of the folks that I've worked with in my therapy practice have struggled with disordered eating or disordered relationships with body, and also happen to find themselves in relationship, maybe not always with narcissistic people, but somewhere on that spectrum, right? Because I hear the origin point, the wounding has a lot of similarities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking about my caseload and my clients, and I would say the majority of them have or have had disordered eating of some kind. Again, it's on the scale of full-blown eating disorder, or I would argue every woman has disordered eating because we're just fed such craziness from the media.
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, I do think that internal seeking is part of both of those things. Part of seeking control and part of seeking the person who can make you okay.
I'm thinking about the comment you made earlier about how even when you end a relationship or break up, that there can still be this compulsion to go back, or why am I still drawn to this person? I see this where someone might be trying to move forward and it's, I can't stop thinking about my ex. What is wrong with me? I know that was so fucked up, but yeah, I still am drawn to them. Tell us what is happening there? How do we break out of that?
Yeah. A big part of it is being sucked in that nostalgia. So when we're in these types of painful relationships, we're not looking back on the painful moments. We're looking back on the little breadcrumbs of good moments. And coupled with a fear of being alone, that can get very dangerous when I'm so uncomfortable being by myself and I'm remembering all these good things. And I have that glimmer of hope that he can get back to being that person.
He can change. Yeah.
And it's like a drug. It really is. It's, oh, maybe this time it'll be different. So we text and, oh, I miss you. How are you doing? Yeah. And we crack open the door. And then depending on the type of person that you're interacting with, they push it open with all the I'm sorries. I'll be different this time. And they feed us everything we want to hear. I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to be different. I know this has happened several times. They use terminology that makes it seem like they're being self-aware.
Yeah, they're co-opting the language, but it's empty and hollow.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where we get really sucked in. And if we're not going back with our eyes wide open of being willing to hold them accountable and or hold ourselves accountable.
Yes.
Okay, you're saying you're going to go to therapy, but I need to see you going to therapy, and then I need to see you changing because you're going to therapy, right? But it's going in with your non-negotiables. We're not doing that. It's, oh, he's saying he's sorry. It's going to be different. I get to have this future that I want, that I was promised. And if I go there, then I don't have to feel all the shit that I'm feeling now.
Yes.
Temporarily.
Yes, it's a little self-medication.
Yeah. We get hits of dopamine just anticipating something. They're just like the drug, right? Drug seekers or addicts or people using get high thinking about when the next fix is coming.
Yep.
So if I'm thinking about, okay, if I go back, we're going to do this different, we're going to do that different, we're going to go to couples therapy, blah, blah, blah. That in and of itself is
rewarding.
And it's like the anesthetizer to the pain that you're feeling. I'm going to take this quick hit instead of getting sober.
Totally. Yeah. Being with myself, finding contentment within myself.
Yeah, because that's painful.
Yeah.
Going through grief in general is painful, right? So when a relationship ends, regardless of if it was terrible or an okay relationship, we're losing that person who held space in our life.
Yeah.
And when there's a void, there's grief. It doesn't matter if the person was an abuser or not, right? We're going to feel that. And we don't like to feel that. We don't know how to feel that.
Yeah, we're so ill-equipped to grieve, I think,
in
our culture, but then also in our families for all these reasons.
We are inequipped to feel most things. It's very rare, I think, and generations now are getting better at naming feelings and being able to be with feelings. But to be able to be with anger or anxiety or fear in a way that's not, I'm going to just distract myself so I don't feel that. I'm going to overwork. I'm going to overeat. I'm going to drug. I'm going to drink. I'm going to use this guy. I'm going to keep dating, whatever it is, so that I don't have to feel that thing. And we go to extreme lengths because of a lot of things, but one being we were never taught how to safely be in our body.
Yes, embodiment. Yes, talk to me about embodiment in this work. It's critical, I'm sure.
Oh my God. I have so much to say about it because I was with the eating disorder, with my trauma, I split. I was so
totally floating head, right? Me too.
I was so good at analyzing. I could tell you exactly why A plus B equaled C. And yet I was still doing C, right? It was like, and I was in talk therapy forever and I had wonderful therapists. And I would touch into EMDR and that'd be too much. And then I'd go back to just analyzing, right? So I had these moments of, I think that's where I need to go. And then I would back out.
Yes.
Because the analyzing is so much safer.
Yeah, you keep your distance, right? I don't have to feel it or be with it in the same way.
No, I can talk about being angry, but I don't have to feel anger. And if you don't know how to feel anger, if you don't know how to be in your body in general, any sensation in your body is a lot. So when you start to allow yourself to feel, the emotions have a place in our body. So if I'm feeling anxiety, I'm also feeling the lump in my throat or wherever the sensation arises for you. I'm feeling anger. I'm also feeling the tension in my shoulders, the tightness in my chest. And that's really scary if you've been disconnected for a long time. Now in my work, I use EFT tapping, stands for emotional freedom techniques.
Yeah.
And it's an accessible way to regulate your nervous system while you're exploring something that feels uncomfortable.
Give us an example.
So we're pressing on acupressure points on our face and our torso and our hands. And the stimulation by itself is turning on our parasympathetic nervous system. So we have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic.
Right.
Sympathetic is that fight, flight, or freeze or fawn. It's activating your body so that you can get away from something that feels like a threat, which is great when we need to get away from something that feels like a threat. But when that threat is anger or sadness, we need to be able to be with that in order to move that energy through our body. We are pressing on these points, or we're tapping on these points as we're talking, and it's regulating the nervous system. So when we feel safe, then we can be in space with something, right? I'm not trying to run away from it. I'm not scared of it. My body feels safe. I'm naming out loud that I hate feeling this, but I'm going to be with it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be pretending that you like to be there. It's naming what's true for you. And when we feel regulated, or when we are regulated, there's less activity in our amygdala and more activity in the rational part of our brain. So the amygdala is, again, the scanner of danger. So when I'm in that state and when I'm in that part of the brain, I cannot make sense of things.
The alarm bell.
Yeah. If you've ever had the experience of being so emotionally, so angry that you can't figure out why you're angry and you're trying to fix it, but your brain is switching. It's because that part of your brain is, there's danger. We don't have time to think about the danger.
Yeah.
So we have to regulate enough to be able to make sense of what's happening. When we use those other parts of the brain, then we can use curiosity to get more into the places of where is this coming from? Where is this in my body? What does that feel familiar to, right? We're trying to piece together why this is feeling so activating. And then we can meet ourselves with compassion.
Yeah.
So we're really good at analyzing and judging. Good at it. And it's such a protective mechanism. Being in the feeling, being in your body, and having compassion are the harder things to do.
Yes. Like my least favorite thing about all of my healing, maybe to this day, is really being with it and like the uncertainty of when it will end. Part of what I think is a myth that we need to bust to do this work, as you're talking, I'm thinking about it. Feelings are not actually dangerous. Feelings are not threats, right?
Yep.
We need to acclimate again. And I think because so many of us have received messages around our feelings or certain body sensations of that's dangerous or too much or whatever, that's a part of this hurdle for a lot of us, is to like, again, take up the space, give ourselves permission to feel and trust that we can move through these waves of experience and emotion and sensation.
There's way more messaging around how to be happy, right? How to get to this like place of being happy. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And there's not enough messaging around how to be with what is, so that you can come back into your self energy.
Yes.
If we can start to see our feelings as parts of us, right? I have an angry part that's coming forward. I have a sad part that misses him. I also have a part that feels relieved because I'm out of that situation. We can start to see ourselves as multidimensional and get curious about why those parts are presenting at different times. It's less about, I need to shun them away so that I can be happy, and more about how do I get curious and be with them so that I can give them what they need so that I can feel back in my centered place.
Yeah, which is the wellspring of wisdom and clarity and courage to do these hard things, right?
Yes. Yeah, we all have that experience of feeling centered and compassionate and calm and creative, right? All of these, Richard Schwartz uses all of these C words to describe heart's work. And when we're in that self-energy place, we feel really good. And so we've categorized that as happiness. But really what that is just a centeredness. Happiness can be a part of it. It's another emotion that comes forward. We're doing ourselves a disservice by thinking we have to be happy all the time and thinking that it's not normal to have different waves of different emotions come in depending on what's happening in our environment. We're never going to be happy all the time. That's not real. You just get better. You get more skilled at returning back to that self-energy, to giving your parts what they need, recognizing, creating a relationship with them, and then being able to come back. And that takes a lot of dedicated practice.
Intentionality. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's just like yoga. It's just like breath work. It's just like exercise. It's the things that we have to do over and over again to get the benefit from. I'll do sessions with women, and I thought this myself, where I'm like, I've already healed this shit. I've already talked about my mother or my father or whatever the wound is that keeps resurfacing, because that part is needing something again from you. We just get more versed in what that is.
I always say that happiness is a false goal.
Yeah.
Because it's just so temporary and fleeting, and there's something richer and more fulfilling the more that we make space for all the complexity of human experience, and to receive it from a grounded, centered place, and the trust in self that we're fully capable of holding all of those things. And
it's a convenient distraction. Right? If I'm focused on needing to be happy all the time, then I can beat myself up for not being happy all the time.
Here's my metric. Totally.
And I don't actually have to sit with the reason why I'm not happy all the time, but I can just focus on this judgment piece and analyzing what I'm doing wrong and read another self-help book about how to be happy.
The self-help addiction. That's a whole other. bucket that comes up for me in this. Another way to live head up.
I always talk about awareness is a crucial part of the equation. We need the self-help book. We need the podcast. We need the information so that it can start to resonate that this is something that feels true for us.
Yeah.
Or something that we want to work on. But then we actually have to be in the feeling and integrate it in order to move it. So if listeners are listening and they've been in therapy for 15, 20 years, and they're like, I don't feel like it's working. Maybe you need something other than talk therapy. Maybe you need a somatic therapy. Maybe you need a more trauma-informed therapy, a EMDR or brain spotting or something that's using the body too.
Yeah.
And helping you to be able to be with that stuff that we don't want to be with.
One of the concepts that I've seen you reference in some of your content is the distinction between being alone and feeling lonely.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more around that? I'll tell you the context of where this question is coming from. So many folks that I work with get stalled out in doing the thing that they know actually would be probably what's best for them because of they're terrified of being alone. I love this distinction that you talk about between being alone and feeling lonely, because I think there's a reframe that's available here.
Oh, completely. When I was in that relationship, there was a point when things were really going downhill where we were sleeping in the same bed, but there were pillows between us. There was a dog between us. And I had never felt more alone, not just because of the physical barrier, but the emotional distance was like a million miles apart. I had felt so unseen, so misunderstood, so undesired that I felt that was the most alone I've ever felt, regardless of being single or not, is being in bed in that moment.
Wow.
And feeling like I could reach over and touch this person physically, but they're 1,000 years away, right?
Yeah.
And so in the relationship, coupledom, like being coupled, somehow gives us this sense of, I'm not going to feel alone. I'm not going to feel lonely. But I was lonely. I was very lonely in that relationship. And a lot of relationships, when they start to fall apart, when you start to not have communication, when you start to lose that sense of togetherness, that's almost more painful than being alone. When you're single and you have done the work to be able to be with yourself, and that's a process too. That doesn't just happen the moment you become single.
Totally.
But there is a possibility of being able to be alone without other people in the space and to feel content. When I'm alone right now in my relationship, or when he's traveling, or when we're doing something apart, I don't feel lonely. I might long for him. I might miss him, but that sense of being is always together. When you're single, being able to feel content in your space by yourself is the way that you are then going to go into the next relationship from that place of, I don't need you to make me feel okay. You're like the cherry on top.
Does that feel like a prerequisite to you when you work with folks? We need to first figure out how for you to find contentment in aloneness so that we don't recreate patterns, or does it not have to go in that sequential order?
Aloneness seems to be a common wounding that my clients have.
Yeah.
But that wounding can really be anything. It can be like a sense that I'm not enough. It could be a sense that I actually don't deserve love because somewhere someone told me that, or I interpreted that because my parents didn't pay attention to me. There are many reasons, many wounds often that have to be looked at, so we're not seeking the person to fix it. So it can be loneliness. It could be, I'm not lovable. I'm not enough. I'm too much. We have a lot of this programming. It's just that subconscious program running in the background.
Yeah. If we have someone listening now who's feeling a little bit stuck about where to get started in all of this work, regardless of whether they're partnered or not? What's a first step for people? What do you invite them to do?
Yeah. To hear that you're not alone in what you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So whether that's talking to people, talking to your friends, to safe people that can hold that space for you, to talking to a therapist, to talking to a coach, right? Just having that first person that you can be really honest with, that can reflect back to you, like, you're not alone in this. And you're not the only person who's thought these things, felt these things, not known what to do with these things. That reaching out for support is often the hardest part, because I know in my case, I was just like, I got to figure this out by myself. And I don't know how to explain it to someone else. I myself felt so confused and disoriented. I'm like, how do I even know how to start in a session with somebody? Or with my friends, I felt so confused in what I was saying that then I felt so much shame. And then I just stopped sharing. And then you internalize, and then you isolate, and then everything gets 20,000 times bigger because you're holding it all on your shoulders. So having the safe person that you can start offloading some of this stuff, and that can really validate that you're not crazy, this isn't all your fault. We need that safety, especially coming out of something that feels unsafe on some level, where our hypervigilance has been turned on, our nervous system has been turned on for months or years, because we are walking on eggshells, because we're fighting all the time, because we're trying to avoid the next fight, whatever it is. It's, you need that. You need a safe space.
One more question for you, Bre. What does it mean for you to take up space in your own life right now?
That's a good question. It's wild to be in a healthy relationship now. My fiance and I, for the fact that I'm engaged, is like something I also never thought. I never thought marriage was going to be in the cards. And to be in a healthy relationship and to be with somebody who genuinely cares to inquire about not just how's your day, but like, how are you? And then there's space for me to actually think about that and share that, the truer feeling underneath all the stuff that's going on. To have space to have real conversations like that, and to feel safe enough. There's never been once that he has judged me for something that I've said, or made me feel wrong about something that I said, or giving me the cringe look. A lot of times I feel that too. And so taking up space now for me is really vocalizing to somebody else and asking for help when I need something, because I was really good at doing everything by myself. So be it from my fiance, be it from my friends, be it from whoever, it's, no, I'm actually not okay. And I need to have a phone call with you if you have space today. That used to be.
I love that honesty so much.
Especially as space holders. I don't know if you feel this just being a therapist, but oftentimes we're really good at holding space, and people know that. And we like to do it too.
It's a very comfortable role. Totally.
And being the one to be like, I'm actually not okay. I actually need you. Is really vulnerable. Doing that, practicing that, brings me back to this, I don't know, I guess it's like a humility that I have around what my clients go through too, where it's, I'm not all figured out. I may be a couple steps forward in relationships and can guide you there, but I still come up against all kinds of stuff, and I still need my people, and I need my therapist, and I need all of these people that I've put in place to allow me to continue to be healthy.
It's a great answer. Bre, thank you so much. I know you're doing lots of things in your business. So can you share more about some of the offerings you have, and if people want to connect with you, how you'd recommend they do that?
My signature program is called Becoming, and it's really a space that's curated to help you start to step into that woman that you want to be in relationships. And in order to start to move forward, we have to unpack what you've been carrying, and we have to find that clarity. So it's a combination of educational modules to appease that part of our brain that I feel safer learning. It's individual sessions and it's group sessions where we use tapping to start to be with those feelings, to start to be in our body and experience what that's like. And then we have a Slack channel, which is, if you aren't familiar with Slack, so it's just a private locked space that's only for the people in that group to come and share what's happening. This is what I'm feeling today. I really wanted to text him today. I'm really missing him today. I really freaking hate him today. Whatever it is. It's like,
oh, that's a cool space.
It's that place to come, especially if your friends and family are a little bit tired of hearing about it. A lot of friends and family will hit this point of leave him or don't. Right? And they have to set their own boundary around their mental being because they can't hold that type of space. So being able to be with other women who are saying the exact same thing or who maybe are a couple steps forward and are like, girl, I thought that too. This is what I did. That is the most beautiful part of that program. So it's really that community piece of you're not alone. Any thought, feeling, urge you've had, I can guarantee either I've had it or someone in the group has had it. So it's that great equalizer there. And then I have individual coaching programs as well. If somebody is not really into the group dynamic piece, same module, same stuff we're working through of finding the clarity and really starting to shift you out of the patterns that you've been in so that you can move into a healthy relationship in the future. Yeah. And you can find everything on my website.
Is that brewolta.com?
It is. Yeah.
Perfect. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah. And then I have a podcast too for people wanting to learn more about narcissism and healing from that. It's called Heartbreak to Wholeness, Untangling the Mindfuck of Narcissistic Relationships. And it's everywhere. So Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you listen to your things.
Incredible. Bre, thank you so much for being here. I just loved learning from you today. And I know this conversation is going to really enrich so many people that listen.
I hope so.
So for everyone else who is listening, thank you for being here. I hope you find some ways to take up a little more space this week. Thank you for listening to Taking Up Space. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and found it to be a resource for you in your own embodiment, healing, and body liberation journey. I hope you can continue the conversation with me over on social media by sharing your thoughts, offering your ideas and suggestions for future episodes, or just connecting. You can find me on Instagram at Inner Atlas Therapy. If you liked this episode and want to support the show, please subscribe, rate, and review the show in your preferred podcast platform. And share this episode with a friend. This ensures that more people can find the pod and will amplify our message of body liberation for all. If you haven't checked it out yet, I have a free Taking Up Space workbook available. This workbook will have you engage in self-reflection and embodied practices as you navigate your own journey of taking up space. You can find this free resource on my website, inneratlastherapy.com. I'll also link in the show notes some additional resources I've developed in my online shop to help you deepen into your own embodiment, healing, and body liberation work. Thanks again for being here. And until next time, I hope you join me in the resistance and find some ways to take up space this week. I'll see you next time.